Okay, I think I see us live. It looks like it. Welcome, everybody, to the Making Awesome podcast, season 2, episode 46, with a very special guest, Mr. Ken Johnson. Ken, I could give you an intro, but I don't think I'm going to even do your story justice. So, can you give us the Backstreet Boys, the who you are, the where you from, the what you did, and as long as you love me?
Okay, so I'm Ken Johnson. I'm here in Michigan. I live in a city outside of Detroit. I grew up in Detroit, but I live in Franklin, a suburb of Detroit. Married, 27 years, a 16-year-old son going into his junior year in high school. And I invented a number of games, but the most successful game I created is a card game called Phase 10. Phase 10 has grown in popularity to become the second best-selling card game in the world behind Uno, a game everyone's heard of. Phase 10 is sold pretty much everywhere Uno is in this country, and it's sold in about 30 to 35 countries around the world. I say 30 to 35 because that number changes on me every now and then, so I'm not sure the exact number, but it's in about 12 languages also. There's an app called Phase 10 World Tour available on iPhone and for Droid devices, and it's doing quite well also. But the card game has done great. We sell more games annually than Monopoly, so give you some idea.
That's a pretty cool title, right? The inventor of a game that sells more than Monopoly. Because most everyone has heard of Monopoly, right? Now they're coming out with these weird ones for individual cities. That sounds like
Sure.
a lot of extra work on their part, but whatever. That's a pretty cool little feather to put in that cap that, yeah, I made something that sells more than Monopoly does, you know? I
Yeah.
I feel like that's an argument your kid could use when they say, my dad's bigger than your dad. Well, my dad invented the second best selling card game on the planet. And unless the other guy's dad invented Uno, you've won.
Right. I haven't run across that guy yet, but
Yeah.
yeah, that is funny, and never anticipated getting to be as large as it has. I
Mhm.
mean, I was just hoping to make a living doing what I enjoy doing, and it turned out to be a home run.
Now, this is 40 years in, right? So Face 10's celebrating 40 years this year, right?
Yes, we're celebrating our 40th anniversary with a special edition of the game. It's a retro edition, so the design of the cards goes to my original design 40 years ago. And we've had probably 5 or 6 iterations of the design of the package over the last 40 years. So we went back to the original design and came up with a special package in terms of the box and there's a note in the package telling a little bit about Phase 10 story with my signature. So it's a very nice, very cool package. It's only available on Amazon, I think, right now, but it's a cool package, and a lot of people are buying it and just collecting it.
I'm about to pick up a copy then, because
Mhm.
I've known Face 10. I've played it a few times. I'm not very good at it, and maybe that's why people like playing with it with me because I'm really
Right.
not good at card games. Uh, but ultimately, I think that it is a really awesome thing. And I heard you talk at the Tampa Bay Inventors Council, and your story was just it it it, it rang with me, right?
Mhm.
Because you talked about going through this process of getting this idea, making some prototypes, getting this initial kind of sale out there, and then all of a sudden you went from about here, a little up, and then boom,
Right.
pure rocket ship to the moon. Can you talk about all of that for us?
Yeah. So Phase 10 was not my first game. My first game was a baseball board game I created when I was 12 and decided to build a company around it when I was 19. So I started this company in my parents' basement, and I convinced the buyer at Kmart, which, Kmart is defunct now pretty much, but back 40 years ago, it was like Walmart is today. I mean, it
Right.
was everywhere and the largest retailer. So I convinced the buyer at Kmart, who was headquartered in Troy, which is another suburb of Detroit, to take my game in. So they put it in all their stores, and it did okay. But at some point, they said to me that they were going to cut it from the line. So I was thinking, well, I've got to come up with another game. And Uno was in its 11th year at that point, 10th or 11th year, and it was just setting records. So I thought I will come up with a card game that can sit on the shelf next to Uno. And so when people see Uno, they see my game and maybe choose it as an alternative. That was the plan. And so I sat down and came up with the concept of Phase 10, which is a rummy-based card game. Anyone that's played Uno knows that Uno is played based off of a card game called Crazy Eights. Crazy Eights have been around there for, I don't know, since they invented cards or whatever.
Yeah.
And a barber in Ohio decided to make a version of Crazy Eights on steroids. So he came up with Uno, played it with his family and friends. They all loved it. He made a few out of his, and sold a few rather out of the trunk of his car in his barber shop. And eventually got a license program with a company in Joliet, Illinois called International Games. So seeing that story, I thought, well, I'm going to do a card game. So I came up with Phase 10, based it in Rummy, went back to that same buyer at K-Mart and convinced him to buy it from me. And he decided he's going to take it slow. So he put it in 20 stores. And just to test it, one-time order, which meant the stores did not have to rebuy. They just put it in and see if it was sell through. Well, it was doing well after a month, so he decided to put it in 50 additional stores. And those stores started reordering on their own. So then about 6 months from the original order, he gave me 800 stores on a one-time basis all over the country. And again, those stores started reordering. So he saw that this was getting some traction, that the managers of the stores were buying it on their own. So about a year from the original order, maybe a year and a half, he gave me what's called a basic stock listing, which means it's supposed to be in all the stores all the time. And at that time, they had about 2,200 stores. So when I got the first order for the 20 stores, I bought all the components from various production houses. So I got the custom decks from a company in Missouri, the boxes from a company in Michigan, and so on. Had all those components shipped to my parents' home and bought all the packaging equipment. So I got shrink wrap equipment, blister card equipment. Yeah, I got all the packaging equipment, had all that at my parents' basement, and had some local teenagers come by, and thousands of us we got together and assembled thousands of games. And those first games that went to Kmart came out of my parents' basement. And the rest is kind of history. It started selling, it went out, took off. Once I got the basic stock listing in all the stores, eventually other retailers started coming on board, and it was doing great. I left the parents' basement in 6 months, opened an office, warehouse facility, produced other games in my line. So by the time I started licensing, I had probably 4 or 5 titles in my line. And 5 or 6 years into all this production, I started licensing to companies around the world, and eventually stopped all the production and just went strictly to licensing. And that's what I do now.
Licensing has always been something that I tell more inventors, y'all just need to get on this. We talked a couple of weeks back with the IP lawyer, Seth Polanski, and he said effectively verbatim, the day of the, first time inventor going to market is done. It's too expensive. It's too risky. It's not worth all the effort and the amount of pitfalls that exist that the young gamers easily get trapped in. There is no point to go to market anymore. Sell it, license it, take the cash, and maybe go to market with number 2.
Right.
But you opted effectively from day one. You kept your manufacturing tight, as controlled as possible. Mm-hmm. And then when it made sense, you licensed it. So how many years did it take before you started talking the licensing deals?
With Phase 10, I think I did production myself for the first 5 years. Initially, it's funny. Here's a story I haven't told very often. When I first got those orders from Kmart, probably the first 50 or 800 stores, I tried to license the game to International Games, which at the time was the company that produced Uno.
Mhm.
They rejected it. And they chose, phase 10 came down. It came down to phase 10 and one other card game that they're going to add to their line that year. They decided to go with the other game, and I think it was either Luck Plus. I think it was called Luck Plus, or it was Oh No 99. One of the two. I think it was Luck Plus. So anyway, they opted for that. Long story short, Luck Plus did not make it in the market long term. Phase 10 did. And I'm glad at the end of the day, I didn't license at that point, because I probably would not have gotten the kind of deal I eventually got when I continued to produce it myself and get more momentum. So I was able to get a much more agreeable license
Okay.
contract. That's the one advantage of doing it on your own. If you can prove the concept, get it out there, then it's a lot easier to get a license than if you're coming in cold to the market. Your licensee doesn't know if this thing is going to be successful or not. Now, having said that, I agree with you 1,000%. Most 99.9% of inventors should license, okay? Because as you said, whether it's a game or some other consumer product, it is so difficult to get them into the market and get momentum, and momentum to the point where you can attract a licensee. One problem, one pitfall to trying to go it on your own as a venture is that if you're not successful, that makes it more difficult to license, because now the next guy says, well, if you couldn't do it, what makes you think I can?
Exactly.
You may have tarnished the market. Maybe there is no market. You may have proved it to be negative because of your efforts. And maybe you just didn't have the bandwidth, the capital, the other acumen you need to run a business. And so you've actually hurt your chances when you try to venture in a lot of cases. So it's usually better to try to license from the start. Some consumer products that are very inexpensive, and if you have business experience, you can try to launch on some level. But again, 99.9% of the inventors should license out the gate. Just let someone else with the distribution, the experience, and the production capabilities take it from there.
I would agree, right? It is tough. We see a lot of pushback from early inventors saying, but I want the money. I want the money. I said, but do you want the risk? Do you
Right.
want, I would much rather have somewhere between 3 and 10% if you're lucky of
Mm-hmm.
something, rather than not just 100% of nothing, but many, many thousands of percent negative of nothing.
Absolutely. Yeah, and here's another thing. So when I was doing the production again for 5 years of Phase 10, I was making minimal dollars annually. I mean, I was pouring it all back into the business. So I literally had a second job, sometimes a third job, to basically uh, cover my needs,
Mhm.
because the business, although I was selling nationally to K-Mart, I couldn't pull any money out.
It
Okay,
was just reinvesting constantly.
just always going back in, so I
Yeah.
could barely pull money out. So the day I licensed, I was making more money that first year than I had made the previous year on my own, because the licensing, I had no risk.
Mhm.
I just go to the mailbox, pick up a check, um, and the profitability of your business, if you run it profitably, you're not going to lose that much money. I mean, you're thinking, okay, if I do it myself, I'm going to make 100%. Well, it's not true. Okay, a percent. You're only going to get a percentage of the sales price anyway, because you got all kinds of costs. You got a business to run, so you're only going
Right.
to end up with a percentage of the net profit. And whereas if you license, you can get a deal for 3, 5, 6, 7% in the toy industry. Other industries might vary,
Yeah.
but and that's all yours. Okay, you
And the
got no
checks just show
cost.
up in the mail.
It
Someone else
shows
does
up.
all the work.
Oh yeah, a friend of mine, he just got a license deal. I can't name the name because I'm going to give you a figure, but he just launched a game. It's been in the market probably 3 years. So his third year into it, he's making 150,000 a year in royalties.
Not bad for just sitting around.
Not bad, not bad at all, right? So,
It's gonna hurt. That tax
and,
bill is gonna hurt, but he'll find a way. They always do.
right, right. So And obviously, that number can grow. And it took me years to get to that 150,000 level.
Right.
Yeah, I think licensing, you can make good money. I mean, I can't tell you how much. It's a considerable sum of money, more than 150,000, but a considerable sum of money licensing, and it's unimaginable. I mean, I just never imagined making the kind of money that I make now just going to the mailbox.
40 years later.
40 years later, and it continues to grow.
Right.
So a license deal done right is your best way to go. You don't have the business headaches and nightmares. Again, there's a small percentage of people that can pull off a venture, but most people shouldn't do that because the risks are high. And one of the biggest risks is you won't do it correctly, and now you make it difficult to license after that.
When the average inventor comes up to me and says, I want to go to market, I said, do you have $100,000 ready, willing, and able to spend? They said, yes. I said, okay, I want you to take that out of the bank. I want you to go into your backyard. I want you to pour gasoline on it, and I want you to light it on fire. If you feel anything, you are not ready. If you feel anything, you are not ready, because chances are you will get more benefit out of the heat that 100 grand produces than actually spending it on your product. And it's a shame because you can just see all of a sudden they're like, he's either crazy, I don't like what he just said, or, oh my God, he's probably not wrong.
Yeah.
It is absolutely tough. We got a question from a commenter, DDR Freak, definitely not someone that likes playing Dance Dance Revolution. They're saying, do you have any advice for developing that self-publishing network? They're looking to make a trading card game and looking to license, but don't really know how to make that initial connection with publishers. They're starting to think that self-publishing might be the way to go.
Well, so if I understand the question, so if you have a game in particular, it's relatively easy to find licensees in the game industry. Now, whether or not they will accept your idea or your product is one thing, but they're ready, willing, and able to look at new game ideas. Mm-hmm. So you simply would find a list or develop a list of potential licensees in the gaming space and try to find those companies that make similar products to yours. So don't go to puzzle companies if yours is a card game.
Right.
So you find companies that make similar products, and you find them by going to Walmart, go to Target, and then go to a Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, one of the big bookstores in your area. I mean, physically go there, go down the aisles, see what games are there, what manufacturers produce those games, jot all that down, go home, Google them, find their website. A lot of them you can contact them through their website. Some will have a portal on their website to submit new ideas. Others you can just reach out to their customer service or something and request whether they look at outside innovation. Don't get into the hype of how great the idea is, how you're going to all make $1 billion, and none of that kind of stuff.
You're talking to a gatekeeper, they don't care.
It turns them off. Don't do that. Just say, hey, do you look at outside innovation? If they say yes, follow their process because they will already have one. If they say no, draw a line through their name and go to the next one. And that's true whether it's a game or almost any other consumer product.
Yep.
There are usually 1, 2, or dozens of companies in that segment that look for outside innovation. You just have to find them, approach them on a professional level, not as a nutty inventor that's promising and overhyping.
Yeah, okay? Don't do that.
Just say, hey, do you look at outside innovation? If you do, my development company would like to present something to you. If they say, yes, we do, follow the process. If they say no, move on.
Yeah, don't waste their time. Don't waste yours. Everybody's time is valuable. Get the yes or no, move on.
Get the yes or no, move on. Just a quick paragraph. And absolutely do not use the word inventor or invention in this request. Okay. Product development is your company. You produce new products, consumer product development firm, anything other than inventor or invention. Those two words will turn them off.
I'm guessing it's because they get a lot of nutcases sending them crazy stories, and they call themselves inventors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And they'd rather deal with a professional than someone who's, just going to be a nutcase problem for them.
Yeah, it's one of those fake it till you make it kind of deals, or spend like 8 years building a product development firm. That one's been tough. Uh, I I think their big thing that they were looking at is getting the actual cards produced, like getting them printed, and
Yes,
what that looks like. Are there companies that will do short run manufacturing of, let's
yes,
go with very high end style cards, right?
yes. There are a number of short run manufacturers. One is called Delano in Michigan. It's in Western Michigan.
Hmm.
I would do a Google search, but it's Delano, Delano.
Okay.
Um, and there are a number of others. I don't know the names. I hear people talk about them from time to time. I would not go overseas for this
No.
because you just want to make, 100 or 200, and that's going to cost you a lot per deck. But the point here is to have something visual you can show people, right? Now, here's something that your caller may not know. If you're going to license this game, they don't care how beautiful it looks. Okay. Your potential licensee, when you're presenting it to them, they don't care how beautiful it looks. They don't care about the graphics.
Hmm.
You could have produced it with cardboard and crayons. They don't care.
I got
All
both
they
of
care
those.
about is, does this prototype demonstrate how the game is played? How it looks does not matter. You could spend thousands on graphics and waste that money because the chances that they're going to use the graphics you bring to them are slim. They're
Oh, that's
probably going to
fair.
go to their own.
Because they want brand cohesion, so they want
Yes,
to keep it consistent. Yeah.
absolutely. So I wouldn't waste a lot of time developing all of that. If you can make up a prototype, cardboard and crayons, or cobble together pieces from other games,
Hmm.
just something you can present that shows how the game plays,
Right.
then that's all you need to attract a licensee. They'll understand entirely. They won't look down on you because it's not sophisticated graphics and you don't have a pre-production prototype. None of that will matter.
That's interesting because my thought was going to be it needs to also look pretty. I would not have literally I do very little in the gaming industry, so I should be very clear with people that are looking at 3D Musketeers saying, how does he not know this? Because I don't work with game companies often. I've always said, hey, packaging, you got to have pretty packaging, especially if you're going to go to market, you got to have that pretty packaging. But it does make perfect sense. If a company like Mattel might want to pick it up, they have a specific way their games look, right?
Right.
They want things when you go to the shelf, you want to look at the branding and know, oh, I have a game like this at home, but it's not the same name. I bet I'll still like it. Grab it and
Right.
go.
Absolutely.
So that's
They
good.
they know what that game should look like in terms of its size to sit on the shelf, what it's going to cost them, what they're willing to pay for production. So you don't want to spend, if you've got a game, don't spend a lot of time or effort in graphics. Now, if you happen to be a graphic artist or you have a cousin who'll do it on the cheap, yeah, go for it.
Have some fun.
But don't spend tens of thousands of dollars developing pre-production prototypes or in with graphics because it's a waste of money. It's not necessary. Believe me on this. I've literally pitched and shown and have been pitched by others with games that were literally on cardboard with crayon.
It gives me
Right.
faith that one day I too might be an inventor because that is about the level of my artistic ability starts and stops. Cardboard and
Right.
crayons.
Cardboard and crayon, that's all you need. Now, what you do need to spend time on, though, are the rules, the instructions. That is the most critical thing. In fact, Hasbro, Mattel, Spin Master, Goliath, all those companies, first thing they're going to ask you to do when you're submitting a game to them is send the instructions. They don't even want to see the prototype. Send us the instructions. What they will do is they will read the instructions. And people in the gaming space like myself, we can read a set of instructions and get a good feel for this game without actually playing it.
Right.
If they get a good feel for it, then they'll say, okay, by the way, Grant, we like what we've seen. The instructions sound pretty good. Send us a prototype. At that point, they will literally play it. And that's why it's not important how it looks. It's just as long as it plays the way you described. So you got the necessary components. It could be a cardboard this or a Monopoly piece that's borrowed. It could be anything, that as long as you've got the components there and it's playable, that's all that matters. And so, but the instructions are critical, because not only in this phase of trying to get a licensee, but when it comes to the consumer, you got to think about this. A consumer needs to be able to read those instructions and understand them and play the game properly
That is correct.
without you being in their living room telling them how to play or correcting them. They need to be able to do it from those instructions alone. So you need to spend as much time necessary revamping, reviewing, and testing your instructions. And the way to do that is to give your game, if you have a prototype, however you developed it, you take the prototype and your instructions, give it to 4 people or whatever number of players are involved, 4 people who have never played your game before. It could be friends and family or strangers, doesn't matter, as long as they've never played the game before. You give one of them this set of instructions, and you say, read these instructions, tell the other people how to play, you guys play the game. I'm going to go over here, sit in the corner with my notepad and my pen and take notes. And you observe them. If they read the instructions and play accurately, you got something on your hands. You have to do that several times to make sure that flows right. Don't just do it with that group, do it with several groups. And again, every player in the group has never played. Okay. And if they have questions, you say, refer to the instructions. Okay. Because if you know the answers in the instructions, you tell them to refer to the instructions. They got to be able to find it. Okay. That tells you something there. If they can't ferret out the answer to their question and you know the answer is there, you got a problem. Okay. If you know the answer is not there, then you come up with an answer, and with your notepad, make notes, and then go back and revise your instructions to include the new information. Now you got to test some more. So the instructions in a game are the most critical part of it.
That makes sense, because you literally have to have instructions to the point of where the average person, let me remind you that people come in all shapes and sizes and mental abilities, and people that buy your game might not be the sharpest tacks hanging out in the toolbox. So you do want to make sure that it is easily understandable by both your friends that you play games with and the friends you don't play games with that have no interest in playing it. Everybody needs to understand it.
Everybody needs to understand. And don't give the instructions to the PhD in the room. Give it to the average person.
That's right. That's right. When sending this information to these companies, maybe it's because I have the content creator in me is just saying, video, film a video, film a video. Is a video of any use to them, or do they want physical stuff these days? Like, what? I don't know if digital is that big of an impact as maybe I think it could be.
Well, now if you have a game, a video of other people playing it won't matter much to them, because again, they want to see the instructions, and if they like it, then they want to see the actual prototype and play it. They will play it themselves. So a video of other people playing it might give them some instruction on how it works, and that's all very nice, not critical. Don't waste a lot of time and money doing it. Okay. If you again happen to be a great videographer yourself and you want to do it, go for it, but it's not critical. However, in some inventions, a video can be very helpful. If you've developed a new widget of some kind that actually performs some function, then a video of it performing that function would be cool. Okay. And that would be encouraged. Again, I wouldn't spend a ton of money. They don't want you to hire Steven Spielberg to produce it. Just do it yourself on your phone, simple and easy.
On a tripod above a table, tape it to a ceiling if you got to, and crop it in, right? It doesn't have to be pretty. It just needs to be effective. It's what I tell myself every morning when I wake up. And a lot of first-time inventors say, patent, 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 patent. I want to sign the NDA. I want 3 NDAs before I even talk to you, because they're all worried about things getting stolen from them. But you never had a patent, did you?
No. No, never had a patent, but I had its equivalent
Right.
for my type of product. See, products like mine, games, books, music, they're not patented, they're copywritten. So I had a copyright, and I also had what's probably as important, and when it comes to patented products, more important, is the trademark. So I own the copyright and the trademark phase 10, and the copyright of its gameplay. So, and the beauty of a copyright is that it lasts the lifetime of the author or inventor, we might say, plus 70 years after they're gone. So my son who's 16, if I get hit by a bus this afternoon, it will probably last his lifetime as well. So he can continue to earn from it. And the trademark lasts 10 years, and then it's renewable every 10 years. So you just simply pay the government some more money, and you get to keep it for another 10 years. You know how the government works.
Always got to pay the tax man.
You pay the tax man. So you get to keep it indefinitely as long as you're using it.
Mhm.
So they are very important. But patents, as we all know, what is it, 17 years or something? People try to find and play games to extend them, and that's all very interesting.
A max
But
of
the
22.
problem with most patented products have a shelf life that's limited anyway. Okay,
Yep.
because usually there's better, new, and improved ways of solving this problem that come along. So your patented product becomes obsolete at some point, typically, not always, but typically.
Right.
Or the way it does it becomes now obsolete. And there's a better way to skin the cat. So I think while patents can be helpful, patent pending is also something you should go for through a provisional patent application.
It's cheap.
It's cheap, but I wouldn't spend a lot of money on patents. I've known a lot of people who have a wall with, and they brag about the number of patents they've got and so on. And they think it's wonderful. And I just view it as expensive wallpaper unless you've actually made money from it. And the truth is 98, 97% of independent inventors who have a patent do not earn enough from that patent to recover the cost of the patent.
That's true.
It's
Average
over
patent
90%.
runs like
So
7 to 15
you have to
grand.
be very careful. You don't want to spend a lot of money on a patent on something that's probably not going to make you any money anyway. So your time is better spent and your money is better spent on a provisional patent application. As you said, it's inexpensive. Take that year to prove out your concept, make sure there's a market for it, do all the research, check out the competition. Spend that year doing that, the first 6 or 8 months, and then if you see you've got something, then you might consider a patent at that point.
Yep.
Most people think patent is the cure-all, end-all, and I'm going to be a billionaire. And the patent itself is worthless. It's just a piece of paper you spend 20 grand on. It doesn't mean you have a product that the market wants. It just means you came up with something that no one else has. Well, whippy. It's not a big deal if you can't make any money from it, right?
Yep. It's all about making money. Everybody is in this world to make money. And it might not be a lot of money. Some people only want a little bit, just enough to get by. Some people want every penny that there is ever minted on the planet. And some want to mint more and make it themselves. We call them crypto bros. But at some point, you have to decide what is your risk versus reward. And that's the fun thing about printed media. And for those, I'm talking about 2D printed media. 3D printed media is a little bit different. You don't copyright 3D printed stuff. You can try, it's difficult. Stuff that is written on paper that is 2D printed, that's where you go for your copyrights, you go for your trademarks on your logos. It's cheap insurance. And similarly to patents, you also might have to defend your trademarks and copyrights, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We've had issues where through our app, for instance, in the App Store, there have been other people knocking off Phase 10 and using the name Phase 10, and we've had to go to Google and Apple and tell them that they're violating our trademark. They double check that I own it, and they take it down immediately.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've had to do that. We've actually had a violator of our physical games in Egypt, of all places, literally stole everything, the design and everything. And so Mattel and I are going after them. So you will have those people out there that try to, take advantage of your success and knock you off, but you have to defend it yourself. And that's the other thing, you have to do it. Now, the one advantage to copyrights, I don't know about, it's probably true of patented products, I'm not sure. But if copywritten products, if, for instance, someone imported knockoffs of Phase 10 and tried to sell them at retail, they are counterfeit.
Yes.
And the government will help with counterfeit goods.
Yes.
Okay. Such as Louis Vuitton bags and things like that. So they will go after counterfeit goods, posing themselves as the real thing. But as far as people stealing your concept or your idea and reformulating it into something else, government doesn't help you. You're on your own. You got to defend that patent, that copyright, or that trademark on your own.
And that's the other benefit of licensing it, because then it's not your money, it's whomever, in your case, Mattel. And Mattel has a large enough legal team that it supersedes the sales that my company has done in the past 6 years combined.
Right.
And that is the benefit of, you get a nice cease and desist on some probably quite lovely, well-made letterhead from Mattel that says, how about you just don't do this anymore, and we just all kind of forget that this ever occurred.
Right.
And if you're smart, you stop it. If you're in another country and you think they're not going to do anything, you keep going. And then, well, you play the, I'm just going to F around and find out. And sometimes you do find out.
Right. Yeah, you find out at some point. But yeah, that's the advantage of a licensee. Again, the risk we talked about that you take when you do this on your own. Mm-hmm. Now you have to defend infringers on your own as well.
Yep.
And you're already struggling trying to make ends meet, keep that company going, build distribution and sales and manufacture. You're doing everything you have to do. And then you got someone stealing your intellectual property. You got to go hire a lawyer up for that, and it's more cost. Whereas if you have a big partner like a Mattel in my case, or whatever your potential licensee might be, but they're a big company, they have room full of lawyers, and that's all they do is go after this type of thing.
And the fun thing in the States is, if you don't defend your patent, your copyright, your trademark, it is invalidated by default.
Yeah.
And there's a certain system. It depends on, what it is, but there's a certain period at which you must find it. Then you have a certain period at which you must act on it. And if all of those times run out, that shiny piece of paper with that nice gold foil, and it is pretty, don't get me wrong, that you put on your wall is quite literally not worth the paper it's printed on anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
it's like a college degree.
The key to success here in this business of inventing is get to the market, get there fast, and pull out as much money as you can. Not all products have long-term shelf life. A lot of them only have a 2, 3, 4 year cycle. They're fads or they become obsolete. So you just need to get to the market as quickly as you can. A 17-year patent is worthless on a product that only has a 4 or 5 year lifespan.
Yeah. Yep.
So you need to get to market, get your brand out there, take advantage of the marketplace as quickly as you can, versus spending a lot of time trying to get a patent. And by the time you get it, the market's half past you.
It's very true. We tell people the same thing. Get it out there, fail fast, fail forward, and fail often. Right? Failure's totally fine. And you've been through some failure throughout the years as well, but both, I'm sure, with a couple of the initial ideas with Phase 10, but post Phase 10, some other products. Can you talk about those failures?
Yeah. So, the game prior to Phase 10, again, I spent a lot of effort, put it out there. It was a success in that I got it broad distribution, but it didn't sell through.
Right.
Okay. So its life was short. And I've had some other games that I couldn't even get off my design table. No one wanted them. And even coming from me, they go, "Oh, Ken Johnson, the great card game inventor." Well, it doesn't matter to those companies. It's what have you done for me lately is the attitude. So even though I have a name in the industry, they still expect a good quality game. And so I've had one or two I couldn't get past their invention people to get to the next phase. And then I've had others that got past that again, but didn't make it long term on the shelf. This is a very, very tough business. And so that's one of the reasons I tell people to launch a new game right now is very difficult. I mean, it's not all fun and games, no pun intended. I guess pun is intended.
God, that should be the title of this. It's not all fun and games. Oh, I'm going to have to change the title now. But it won't make sense to people that haven't watched it. Oh.
Yeah. So it is very, very challenging. You got to consider there are thousands of new games created annually by individuals and the companies. There's only 20 feet of shelf space, 4 or 5 rows high, levels high at Walmart, which is the biggest toy retailer in this country. There's only limited space for all of these new games. So it's very, very competitive, very difficult. However, on the bright side, it can be done. You just have to have a good idea, test it thoroughly.
Right.
Find a licensing partner who is invested in it. In other words, they're going to put a lot of action, a lot of resources behind it, and go for it, because those hits do happen. Again, this friend I would refer to, his game has only been in the market 3, maybe 4 years, and is doing quite well. And for a game to be considered doing well, you only need to sell a couple 100,000 copies.
And, there are plenty of games out there that have sold way more than that in a much shorter amount of time as well.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
But if you can become a stable, standard item, if you're doing a couple 100,000 items a year. Now, we sell millions of Phase 10 a year, which is why we're way up there in terms of ranking.
Right.
But a typical game on the shelf, I can pick some names like Telestrations or say Apples to Apples, things like that. They're selling a few 100,000 games a year.
Yep.
But they stay on the shelf because of that, because that's all you need. It's like the music industry. People get gold records if they sell 500,000 copies, right? Back in the day, anyway. I don't know about how they do with all the digital stuff. Mm-hmm. And then they have platinum if you sell 1 million. Yep. I mean, you get a platinum record because that's a rare milestone. Most don't hit. Same thing is true in the toy industry, in the games. A few 100,000 gets you a gold record pretty much, because that's difficult to do.
Are there any fun trophies for when you sell that many in the game industry, or no?
It would be nice. At best, you win a Taggy Award, which is our version of the Oscars. So you might win one of those. I was nominated back in 2012, I think it was. It was this is a relatively new award. I think it launched in 09 or 10. I was nominated in 12. I didn't win. I was up against Leslie Scott, the inventor of Jenga, mm-hmm. and Klaus Tuber, I think his last name is, a German who invented, what's it called? Settlers of Catan.
Oh, yeah. Of course, Catan.
It's a great game.
It's a great game.
And I lost to Leslie, which is fine. She came out the same year I did. And so I was happy that I figured it would be her or me. And it turned out to be her, and I'm happy for her. She deserves it.
And for those looking up, it is TAGIE. It's the Toy and Game Inventor Awards.
Yes.
I just had to look it up quickly. I've never heard of the Taggy Awards. And we've had another pretty successful inventor. I never know. I didn't know this existed. We had Chun Ung, the inventor of the Rainbow Loom, on. I don't know if he ever won a Taggy, but I know he won Toy of the Year. But I don't know if that was a Taggy. But that was in 2014.
Yeah, it could have been a Taggy. It sounds like a Taggy. Mm-hmm. But it also, the Toy Association gives awards also. And I don't know how their event works, but I know they give awards. They have like contests, and the Toy Association will give an award of best game of the year or best whatever. The Taggy is the fun one, and it's like the Oscars, the envelope please, and the nominees. I've been there, white tablecloth dinner, presentation, the lights and bow tie, exactly. No, you got to be dressed for it.
As it should be.
It's a fun event, so.
Did you do anything? Did you have like instead of a handkerchief, you have a Phase 10 card in there or something?
Phase 10 card sitting out there, and I had my acceptance speech all written out. So.
I mean, hey, if you're going to lose to anyone, Catan's a pretty good one to lose to, right?
Well, no, actually, it was Jenga.
Oh, it was Jenga. Okay. Hey, that's not a bad one to lose to either.
That's not a bad one. She came out, I think, in 1982, the same year I did with Phase 10. And I read her book. It's a very interesting story how she launched it, but it's tragic. On one hand, is how she was pretty much duped out of her royalties. So I'll let her, if you get a chance to read her book, it's very interesting. It's a real lesson for anyone, whether you're doing games or any product. Her story of how she missed out on her royalties is a very interesting story. Even the guy who invented Uno, this was in 1971 when it came out. I think it's 71, 72, he came up with a deal with International Games as a license, and he gave away the rights to Uno in exchange for 20 years of royalties and 10 cents a game. At the end of 20 years, he was out and no more royalties. So he pretty much signed it off for 20 years, 10 cents.
He didn't think it was going to last.
Didn't think it was going to last. Bad deal in terms of the term, and bad deal getting a fixed amount. You don't want to get a fixed amount. You want a percentage, because I don't know what the wholesale of Uno back in 71 was, but let's say it's $1.50 wholesale. He'd get 10 cents or 10 cents on that $1.50, which sounds like a lot relative. But if he were getting 5 or 10% as that thing goes up, he would have been making more. And if it goes to $4 wholesale, he's getting 10 cents. Now he's not getting much.
Yep.
Right.
Even if 5%, he'd be making 20.
He's making 20. So he lost money there, and then 20-year term. He's passed away, I think, in the 90s sometime. Interesting story as well. So inventors, I've seen not thousands, probably hundreds of license agreements, and I've done a number of my own. I've seen a lot of pitfalls, a lot of experience, things that you should have, things you don't want in your agreement. And his deal was a bad deal. Not only did he give away all the rights, but he had a term of 20 years. Again, like you said, he probably didn't think it was going to be that big a deal. I mean, it wasn't Uno at the time, right, in terms of its growth and popularity.
Right.
So he thought 20 years, wow, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I'll be rich by then.
I'll be rich. 10 cents a game, that's incredible. Sell 1 million games.
He probably still did okay, though,
Yeah, well, he did well. Yeah. I'm sure he did well. But
wasn't as well.
I know what he would be making now relative to what I make. I have an idea what he would be making. It's just phenomenal. It would blow you away to know how much money he would be making sitting back collecting royalties. So again, it's a lesson learned, and there's a lot of things out there. I've made a few mistakes in my deals, but fortunately, that was not one of them. I retained ownership. Control the trademark, and they can't change a word of the instructions or the color of the box without my approval.
You want that to make sure that it stays consistent, right?
Absolutely. Want to make sure it stays true, consistent. And owning the trademark to your invention is not talked about much in forums, in inventor clubs and so on.
No, it's not.
It's very important. For instance, I make money on iterations of Phase 10 that I didn't even invent, but because they have to use the name Phase 10, I get paid.
You get the license on the name.
Right. So you should own the name, own the underlying product.
And I mean, in the grand scheme of things, freaking trademarks and copyrights are so much more affordable to get.
So much more affordable than the patent.
Orders of magnitude more affordable.
For the cost, you could apply for a copyright or a trademark combined.
Yeah.
For less than the hourly rate of some patent attorneys.
Yeah, most I think it's up front if you do it yourself, like $375 right now to do a trademark.
Yeah.
But again, if you don't know exactly what you're doing, pay someone to do it the first time. And
right.
If you're nice to them, maybe they'll show you how to do it on time number 2 for a little bit of a lower fee next time.
Absolutely. And actually, I applied for my trademark myself, and I read the books. I didn't actually apply for the registration of the trademark for 10 years. I had a TM, but not registered. Then I finally registered, and I did it myself, and it cost me, I think, $400. So, yeah. And it's just a 2 or 3 page form. It's not that difficult. It's not rocket science. And even a patent attorney, a good one, only charge you maybe a couple grand to do it. So yeah, it's not cost prohibitive, and it's very critical to the success, your success, and your alignment with the product down the line. Because if you have a hit consumer product, your licensee will likely want to iterate other versions of it, and you want to own that trademark so that you get a piece of those other versions that you didn't actually create.
Yep. And that's the best part, man. You get just the little bits out of the 40th anniversary.
Right.
You're gonna get some of that. You're gonna
Get some of that. Our app. I didn't create the app. Okay, I
we
created
weren't thinking digital 40 years ago. Nobody
wasn't thinking
was.
digital 40 years ago. No one imagined this,
Yeah.
but because I have a contract, a license done the way it is, they have to pay me. They can't do it without me,
Mm-hmm.
and I own that trademark. And so, and I've made a ton of money on an app I didn't create.
Now, when we look at some of the like the contract terms and royalties and all that, are there things that initial like people that are looking to get into this, are there immediate things that should be big red flags, no go, do not pass go, do not collect $200, if you will? Are there ones you just say, nope, I'm out?
Yeah, there are some deal breakers. Let's see. Let me think of a couple. You want a deal breaker is if they don't give you audit rights.
Okay.
Okay. You want the right to audit their financials related to your product. And the details of that we can get into, but how that looks. But you want audit rights. You want a guaranteed annual minimum royalty amount.
Mm-hmm.
This is an amount they're going to pay you every year, regardless of whether or not sales justify it. And that amount is negotiable. But don't get crazy.
Right.
Okay. All right. Again, I've seen people, I want my guaranteed minimum to be 200 grand a year. Say, well, they're not going to do that. That's a deal breaker. They're not going to guarantee you 200 grand a year out the gate. Okay. Now, so pick a number that's reasonable. It could be just $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. The key though is you want that number to grow based on the growth in sales of the product. So it's not stagnant. You can take a low number initially, but as the sales continue to climb and your royalties climb beyond that, so now your royalties are 20, 50, 100, 200 grand, $500,000 a year, whatever it is, you want that guaranteed minimum to grow also, not to that same level of whatever the annual royalty is, something less than that, maybe 50% of it. So if you're making $500,000 a year, you want the guaranteed minimum to be 250 or something.
Yeah.
So use that as kind of a benchmark, but that's a deal breaker. If they won't give you a guaranteed minimum, it's a deal breaker because they could literally take your product in and do nothing with it, and they owe you nothing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So you want them to be on the hook to pay you something. Otherwise, they pull the deal. And you also want, obviously, their best efforts and all that kind of language in there. But that's subjective. Let's see, what else is a deal breaker? Obviously, if they, well, no, that would be breach of the contract. That's not a big deal. So I would say guaranteed minimum is a must have. Audit rights is a must have. You want your royalties to be paid quarterly rather than annually, because you want the cash flow for one, and you want to keep them honest, because companies, once they start falling behind, it becomes a nightmare trying to get them to catch up. So get them to pay quarterly.
Actually, even quarterly in the beginning seems very short. I'd want it monthly just to make sure things are moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Most won't do that from an accounting perspective, but they will. Quarterly is pretty standard.
Okay.
So yeah, you want quarterly. I would avoid annual. And the other deal breaker for me is giving up all of your intellectual property rights.
Oh yeah.
I would not do that.
Never do that.
Again, our Uno guy example did. Others I know have done that. They signed it away the day they signed the contract and just sit back and collect royalties. But you want to own it, okay? And you want to retain ownership and just license it to them. Because if they breach the contract for some reason, it's a lot harder to get the IP rights back from them than it is just to terminate their contract and go to the next guy because you already own the IP.
That's correct. Remember, they're a multi-million, multi-billion-dollar company potentially, and you may not be. And that
Right.
means that is a very one-sided fight that is unfortunately not designed to have you come out as the winner. Uh,
Right. Absolutely.
Josh Malone is the perfect example of an inventor who David versus the literal Goliath and
Right.
technically won, but as far as I'm concerned, he didn't win.
He's the
I'm
guy with
trying
the
to get him
balloons,
on.
right?
Huh?
He's the guy with the balloons, right?
Yeah, yeah. He went after Telebrands, and he
Yeah.
won. And it was a, it was a copyright thing. Spent over $20 million. He won, but the judge said that stopping Telebrands from producing their copy would produce undue financial stress and strain on Telebrands, and therefore allowed them to continue as
Yeah.
long as they paid Josh a royalty. So from the legal standpoint, it was a win, but I cannot imagine he walked out of that courtroom without feeling even a little bit salty about that decision.
Oh, I bet he still was. I don't know what his intention was. If he was hoping to have them cease altogether,
Yeah,
or maybe
it
he
was.
wanted them to give him a royalty and they refused. I don't know what his intention was, but that's what goes to your point earlier, that you have to fight for these rights.
Yep.
And people will infringe, particularly on a popular product like that. That they will infringe and try to make some slight change and say, hey, it's a different product. It doesn't infringe on your patent, and you got to go fight for that. And you got, as you said, $20 million spent. And are you really satisfied with the outcome? Because the outcome's not guaranteed. You can have a patent, and this is the perfect example of that. You can have a patent and go to trial and still not be certain of what the outcome is, win, and still walk out feeling like you lost.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Because you're out the money initially. Now, of course, you could go after for attorney's fees and all of that too, but you're fronting that money. And thankfully, Josh had people that were helping to pony up and all of that. And Josh is one of those. And I've heard Josh speak more than a few times. He's a good friend of Wayne at TBIC, but I have never been able to get Josh to take an hour or two out of a day, even 3 months in advance, because he is now spending every waking moment of his day. He has moved to Washington, D.C., and he is lobbying for the protection of inventors of all, whether it's trademarks, copyrights, patents. He's fighting for it because he knows the system is broken because it failed him.
right. Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I said, fine. I will accept the fact that you're fighting the good fight as a reason that you can't meet, but I am also salty about that.
You may have to go to Washington and have your, be a reporter on the street and talk to him while he's lobbying between talking to congressmen or something. Interview him live like that.
I should be up in Maryland in October. Maybe I don't know how far I'll be from DC, but if I'm close enough, maybe I'll go over there and see if I can find him. But no, his stories are always pretty phenomenal. So when we look at your future, your legacy, you're not stopping anytime soon, right?
Right.
What's on the horizon for you?
Well, in the inventor space, I just continue to monitor my product and develop and iterate. So we have several versions of Phase 10 available in Europe that we're trying to bring to the US. We have one called Masters Edition. We have a board game version of Phase 10 that sells very well over there called Phase 10 Strategy.
Okay.
And we just did a kids version available internationally that's available in this country also. So we're trying to bring those other iterations back to the US and just helping inventors. I mean, my day-to-day life, though, I'm involved in private equity. I founded a private equity firm, and we buy small businesses, and it's a mission-driven private equity. So we take a portion of our profits and donate those to specific charities. So that's what I do. That's my day job. But Phase 10 continues to obviously be at the forefront of my thinking and just trying to figure out how to continue to take advantage of the brand, make it more available. We just opened up Mexico, so we're just now starting to get to Central and South America. We opened them up 6 months ago. It's starting off great. I expect good things out of Mexico, Brazil. They're big card game players down there as well. So And then we're hoping to get into Asia here at some point. But yeah, so continuing to follow its success and hopefully stand behind it and push Mattel along to do some of the things we need to do to keep it moving. In fact, the 40th anniversary edition I described earlier was, again, my brainchild. I contacted the head of games, global games. His name is Ray Adler. So I called Ray. This was in 20, sometime in 20, because in late 20, they came up with the 50th anniversary edition of Uno.
Right.
And I saw a promotion for it, and I said, wow, it's 50th anniversary. Cool. I said, I wonder if they're going to do a 40th coming up for phase 10 next year. So I called Ray and says, hey, I don't know if you know, but first of all, congrats on the 50th anniversary of Uno. It looks awesome. Do you know phase 10 is coming up on this 40th next year? He said, no. I said, we ought to do it for the anniversary edition. He said, absolutely. So we arranged for a conference call a couple weeks later with their design team, put together a plan. And now we have the 40th anniversary launch February 9th on Amazon. And they told me it was their best first day launch of any Mattel product in history. So that was pretty
cool thing, man.
That was pretty cool.
So where's your golden phase 10? They need to coat one in, there's a process called chemical vapor deposition where you can metallize plastics. They need to do that. They need to send you one.
Yeah, they ought to. Or send me a gold Rolex, one of the two.
Why not both? You're also an author. This is your book, The Simple Plan. I have really enjoyed it, and I think anyone that wants to be an inventor or wants to help inventors needs to read this book. You want to give a little bit of an insight into this book for those listening out there?
Oh yeah, sure. So The Simple Plan, I tried to break down the inventing process from ideation to the store shelf as simply as possible. My theory in life is if you can take the complex and make it simple, more people will grasp it and can buy into it.
Yeah.
So I broke the inventing process down to 6 steps, and I put them in order of significance or order of procedure. In other words, don't go get to the patent office before you've done step 1. The patent office, in my view, is step 5.
Okay. At least. Sales comes before patents, in my opinion.
Exactly. So step 1 is research, research, research. Okay. And so anyway, I break it down to 6 easy steps, from the research phase to a prototype phase to testing the prototype, then doing any type of intellectual property registration, whether that's a trademark, copyright, or a provisional patent application, not a full-blown patent.
Right.
And if you insist on a full-blown patent, that would be step 5. And then step 6 is deciding between venturing or licensing. And I give the pros and cons of both and the process for both. Again, as we've talked about, 99% of people, I think, should license. However, there are those few people out there that have the wherewithal, the resources, and the acumen to start a business around their invention. And so I talk about how that process looks. And that's it. I try to make it as simple as possible. I think most people find it an easy read. I spend a lot of time, though, talking about the inventor mindset, how to prepare yourself for failure, how to view a patent in the first place, whether it's the end-all, be-all. I talk about avoiding invention marketing companies. There are people out there that say they will assist you.
Oh my God.
You got to avoid them like the plague in most cases. So I talk about a lot of things beyond those 6 steps.
Yeah, I've said it here, and I don't mind naming and shaming. Don't use InventHelp, please, for the love of God, don't use them. They've been around so freaking long because they've got really good marketing, and that's about all they have. And they have a great way to take your money.
And they take it legally. They take it legally.
Yeah.
You just brought up something. How could they be around? People say, well, they've been around forever. They must be doing something right. Well, they've been doing it legally, taking your money, because they do what they say they're going to do. They say they're going to give you a sales sheet. They're going to do this, that. there's nothing that they do for you you can't do for yourself or for a lot less money. So that's the problem. They generally do it legally.
Yeah.
They do what they say. It's just that what they say they're going to do, you can do yourself. Why give somebody they take as much money, by the way, as they think they can get from you.
Oh, yeah.
I've literally been to Invent Help meetings with people I consulted. They insist I go with them because they really think that this is a good deal.
Oh,
so I've gone with them.
I'm so sorry.
And literally, I've seen I don't know what the Invent Help people call their counselors or whatever at their locations, but I've seen them say, look, well, for 10 grand, we'll do this. And they tell someone else for the same list of services, they want 15 because they size people up and they try to extract from them whatever they think they can. So, and I've seen people get burnt, spend tens of thousands of dollars, and all they have is a list of potential licensees and maybe a sell sheet and maybe
Google
a PPA.
gives you most of that.
Right, absolutely. So they do what they say. It's not worth the money, their effort, and they will drag it out forever. They say they're going to introduce your product to companies, and in fact, what they do is they send out your product in a folder of maybe a dozen other products unsolicited to people, and you can imagine what happens to that. It goes right to the garbage.
Trash. Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
We're actually working with a company right now that came to us after finally walking away from Invent Help 3 years and $18,000 later. They have CAD. So they got something.
Right.
But the CAD involves a lot of gears. A lot of gears. Why? I honestly have no clue. We're doing a drive shaft and we're cutting down like 18 gears out of their system.
Wow.
And none of the gears mesh. You can look in the CAD and see that they're that they touch each other.
Right.
That doesn't work. Like that's not how the system works.
Right.
If you were to produce this, it would functionally fail.
Right.
Because the average person doesn't know how to look at these things, doesn't know how to look at a CAD model, I'm very thankful they came to us. Now, they're going to spend a little bit more money for us to fix it, make it manufacturable. The initial manufacturing quote on their product, the mold cost alone was over $150,000.
Wow.
And that's here in the States.
Wow.
Similar to you, I do not recommend that people go overseas to do their production unless they've already licensed it, then let the big company deal with it. Right. I say keep it locally where you can, if you can go shake somebody's hand, and if you're really nice, push the go button on the machine, because everyone likes pushing the big buttons.
Yeah.
That is, and yes, you're going to spend more money, but you're supporting your local economy, you're supporting a local business, and you're getting the customer service that you wouldn't get anywhere else. Absolutely. We're going to do for them what Invent Help couldn't do in 3 years, in 3 weeks. We are completely redoing their product in 3 weeks.
Awesome.
They're going to pay me a fair bit to do it.
Right. But the companies like yours are, that are legitimate, truly helping people, providing a good service. They're out there, people like you, but there are scammers out there too, and they just have to be aware. And so I talk a bit about that in the book, how to recognize those companies and avoid them. And I do mention a couple by name as well.
Yeah, the big thing that I took away from that section was they need to have their success stories. And I'm like, damn it, we don't have any success stories because all of them are under NDAs. And so I've reached out to all of the good success stories and been like, hey, I know we have an NDA, but I would love to help cross-promote your product on our website. Would you be willing to write a testimonial where we can talk about it? I've got one maybe and a bunch of, you signed an NDA. Not until the NDA is up. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Right. Love that.
Well, you have a good tangible thing, though. I mean, not only are you providing service and you have happy customers, but it's tangible. You build something for them that works, is functional. I can see them working in the background there. So
Inventor products right there. I don't know. I can't remember if I signed an NDA, so I'm going to assume I did.
Well, I can see something there. I'm going to get an idea of what you're making. So
that's one of these. It's a Cali. Oh. God, the camera hates it. It's the Cali Dragon from Meijer. It's a 3D printing thing. It's a calibration print that looking at it, you can tell whether or not the print is messed up. So I'm printing another one here because this one was printed while I was driving. So
you got one mobile one you can take around, or
this exact printer?
Really?
This one here. Well, okay, I have a portable battery pack, that I can, they're called portable power stations. You can buy them on Amazon. We have one for 3D scanning because we do high-end 3D scanning. So if someone makes a physical product, in hand, I can just take it, scan it in, and I get basically 95% of what I already need. The problem is those scanners require power, as do the computer. Well, you don't always have available power. So I have a little portable power pack. And I said, I'm driving to Miami. What the hell? Let's see if we can print in the car. Worst thing that happens is the battery dies, the print stops, and it's still a cool video. Lo and behold, it succeeded. And I have some really funny shots of because we did it at night. So I had lighting set up in the backseat of my car. So you can see cars driving up to pass me. They slow down and then they keep going because they're trying to see what's going on in the backseat of the car. Because I've got studio lights back there just blasting the printer with light. But I guess we said we're going to separate what we do from kind of the other rapid prototyping companies and offer people the ability to cross promote on our social media. We have an almost 6,000 subscriber YouTube channel where we're streaming live. And that's why we have questions from the audience and all that. And there's so much availability that we can provide to our customers, which I think is an interesting thing that nobody else is really taking advantage of. And soon we're going to be launching our own classes because I'm kind of tired of teaching the exact same thing over and over and over again. So I'm just going to have a class, nice cheap price on it. Say, you can go listen to me talk about it, or I can bill you $150 an hour to talk to you about it too. I don't care. We're trying to streamline that process because we believe that knowledge is what empowers people. And I'll tell you, I'm about almost halfway through. This has been one of the best invention books that I've read in a long time because you take a no BS approach to it, and very few others do. And I do appreciate that.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the comment. And if you haven't already, I'd love the review on Amazon. That'd be nice too. So think about it.
Yeah.
So, one question I have for you.
Sure.
I'm going to interview the interviewer. Have you found during the pandemic you're seeing more people with ideas, inventions? Did the pandemic bring out more ideas in people where they're sitting at home just contemplating the meaning of life, or what?
This is what I love about being a business owner, because I saw this coming and I started tracking the metrics. 59% increase in the average email we get from inventors.
Wow.
So that is a significant rise. And after asking the question over and over again, we determined the exact reason. People either, one, lost their jobs, or two, were working from home. In both cases, they found themselves with a fair bit of extra free time. In one case, considerably more than another. But if you're not driving half an hour each day, that means you're gaining about a little bit less than 3 hours a week. No, sorry, 5 hours a week. And I'm bad at math. I have 2 business degrees. And that 5 hours goes into that idea that you don't want the ghost of Billy Mays talking about on late night television, because everybody's got one, and most of them kind of suck. And I'm very honest with people. Some people appreciate it, some people don't. But we've been doing it long enough where we've worked with some pretty major brands, and I've got a pretty good idea of what it looks like, right?
Good.
I'm expecting an economic downturn coming here pretty soon, and those that don't are just, I feel they're blind. It's pretty obvious. We're starting to see the supply chain problems go from we don't have enough supply to we don't have enough demand, and that's a problem. And I'm expecting more inventors to come out of the woodwork because, again, people are going to pull at their heartstrings to find whatever they can. That is the other reason for the classes, is that I feel we're going to be pretty inundated. We allow anybody to schedule a 25-minute call via Zoom on our website totally for free. You don't even have to talk to me to do it. You can book it right in my calendar. You need nothing other than it requires your email, because I need to kind of know who you are. And that's been my goal, to try to break that barrier and get people moving in that right direction. We have a mutual non-disclosure on the website, pre-signed by me. It's handled by a DocuSign competitor. So again, everything is automated to the utmost degree, because if we make it complicated for them, they're never going to do it. And they're going to end up in the invent helps that do make it easy. Because that is what they do. They make it really, really easy.
Make it really easy. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
well, that's great. That's great. I mean, again, I took a look at your website. You offer a good service.
Appreciate
and it. There's a lot of need for this. And I'm definitely going to keep your information handy, because we have people at our local inventor group all the time looking for 3D equipment or someone who can do it for them.
Yeah.
And you do CAD and all of that, right?
Art to part.
Okay, cool. So yeah, definitely be able to refer some people to you, because finding a good legitimate source is not always easy. And then they don't always last too. Some of the people out there sincerely trying to do it don't get enough business to stay open. So that's another challenge.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about that, man. The fun thing about this industry is that there's not a lot of the companies that do it. So locally, I'm kind of friends with all of my competitors, which is not normal, right? And we keep in touch with each other, and a few of them have fallen off. We don't hear from them, so we assume they're not in business anymore. But a couple of them are starting to become bad actors, and the rest of us are trying to figure out, how do we get around this and change the narrative from, I've had such a bad experience with X, I'm probably going to have it with Y, to I had a bad experience with X, but that doesn't mean Y is going to have the problem too.
Absolutely.
And that's the same thing when it comes with licensing, when it comes to inventing. If you have a bad experience, it's kind of tainted for you from the beginning.
Yeah. It makes it difficult. You mentioned something just now that reminded me of something I wanted to mention.
Sure.
You talked about inventors wanting to run to the patent office because their biggest fear is someone's going to steal their idea.
Yep.
Right. And I see that all the time. And I've actually had people go against my advice and run to the patent office, spend tens of thousands of dollars, then come back to me later and say, okay, what do I do now? And I said, well, what you do now is what you should have done in the first place.
Yep.
Is let's figure out if this thing has a market. Couple quick Google searches, and I find out they got competitors. They told me no one else is doing it. And I find out they got competitors all over the place. I'm wondering why they didn't do this simple search just to see who they are and be honest.
Yep.
A lot of inventors think, the path to success is to be the only one doing it, quote unquote, the only one doing it. Not true.
That's the worst path to success, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
It is the
Sisyphus school. If you're the only one doing it, maybe there's a reason no one else is doing it. Maybe you're trying to solve a problem that isn't really a problem for other people, or they're not willing to spend money on a solution.
Yep.
Okay. So being the only one doing it may mean there's no market for it. Finding competitors tells you, assuming they're successful, that there is a market for this solution. So now your only challenge is making sure your solution is somehow better than theirs.
Yep.
And it only has to be either cheaper, more effective, or more efficient. Exactly. One of those three, now you got a shot, but at least you know there's a market. So saying that there's no one else doing it is not necessarily a good thing.
Or
so people put blinders on.
Even worse to me is, it's made for everybody. No, it's not. Go back to class.
Right.
I have learned the first two questions I ask is, what is your product and what is your target market? And if you can only answer one of those two questions and it's not the one about your target market, that entire 25 minutes is not spent talking about your product. It's about talking about your customer persona and talking about who they are. And if your mom tells you have $1 million idea, but her friend from, the neighborhood thinks it's a stupid idea, you have 50% of the people you've asked tell you it's good. And the one person that told you it's good, you should never listen to them when it comes to products, unless your mom is blatantly way too honest with you. And then maybe everyone's got one of those family members is like, no, your product sucks.
Right.
And maybe
in fact,
they need to hear
I have something like that in my book, because when you're asking people about your invention, asking friends and family as the first line, that's fine. You can probably get a quick no. Okay. If your friends and family tell you no, it's probably a no.
Yeah.
But if your friends and family tell you it's a yes, it still may be a no. Okay. So you got to go beyond them, but getting them as the first line, the first feedback is fine, it's cheap, inexpensive, and they're close by. But you got to go beyond that. You got to go to the users, potential users of that product. So if you've invented a new straightening comb, okay, for hair, and you can't ask people who never straighten their hair about your new product. You can only ask people who actually straighten their hair. You
But
want
Ken,
to
you'd
talk
buy
to
my hair comb that straightens hair, wouldn't you?
yeah, there you go. I could use it, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
my bald head. So you need to talk to people that would be users,
Right.
right? And that's where you get the best feedback. But people oftentimes aren't honest with themselves. They're so enamored with their idea and maybe the initial feedback of their friends and family that's cheering them on that they don't read the road signs that are in front of them, telling them, wait, hold it, stop, wait a minute, okay? You're going in the wrong direction, or you need to turn around and go back home because this idea has no merit. So you have to be honest. But getting back to the whole idea of being stolen thing, people are definitely afraid of that happening. The truth is, the chances of your idea, your concept being stolen are very slim. And the
Incredibly
reason
slim.
that's true is no one knows whether an idea is going to be successful or not. No one knows that.
Yep.
That's why the big companies, Hasbro, Mattel, they get thousands of ideas, and they prefer to launch a product that's already been in the market, already has brand reputation, and they can iterate off of versus launching something brand new.
So
Because
much
they
harder.
don't know if something brand new will work.
Yep.
With all their money, they can't be sure, and they don't want to take the risk. So most companies do not steal ideas. What they steal are proven concepts. Okay. They don't steal ideas. Only until you don't have to worry until your idea is in the market, like our guy with the balloons, for instance. Once he's gotten his idea out there and they can see that this is awesome and there's a market for it, now he's got a problem.
Yep.
Or me with phase 10 and the Egyptians stealing our phase 10, knocking it off. I got a problem. But if I walk in there with phase 10, trying to license it to someone, they don't know if it's going to be a hit or not. So their ideas generally aren't stolen. It's proven concepts that you really have to worry about, not so much ideas.
I love when inventors say, well, I just don't trust you, so I need you to sign an NDA. I said, if you don't trust me, then why are you doing business with me? Well, you just know how to take a product to market. I said, yeah, and that's why I'm not going to do it.
Right.
You know,
right. That's why I'd rather provide you this service, right?
Yeah. If all I did was steal ideas, I'd call myself Invent Help. I wouldn't call myself 3D Musketeers.
Right, absolutely. No, and that's a good point. And people, even with an NDA doesn't mean people can't steal ideas. So I mean, it's really, you have to have a level of trust who you're going to work with, period.
Yep.
NDA notwithstanding, you got to trust that person, and you have to be willing to take a chance. Okay. Try to find people of good character, good reputation, get testimonials if you feel you need to. But you have to trust who you're working with. And for me, I have people tell me ideas all the time. NDA, not necessarily an NDA, but people telling me, literally weekly, I get someone with an idea. Refer to me, hey, Ken, can you talk to this person, that one, or whatever? Weekly. 6 months later, after I've given them some consultation, told them what I think they should do, 6 months later, they call me up and say, hey, Ken, I did what you said, and I'm ready to take the next step. You know what my first question to them is? It's, okay, remind me of what your idea was. Because
Boy,
literally,
they get salty sometimes when they hear that. I'm the same way.
Hundreds of them. I see hundreds of them. I'm not cataloging these things and trying to figure out what to steal. I could care less. I want people to be successful. I'm not trying to launch something brand new. If I had someone show me a brand new game, the last thing I would be trying to do is figure out how to launch that. I'd rather figure out how I could iterate my own brand rather than try to launch someone else's. So you're really safe with people like us because we have our own vision, our own thing we're trying to do, but my point is, you're going to have to develop a level of trust. You're going to have to take a risk. Because in my book, I talk about those people that so closely guard their idea that they never get it out there. And the next thing they know, they see it somewhere else. Someone else did it, and they kick themselves because they didn't do anything with it. So that's the worst thing, is holding that idea in and not taking a chance and putting it out there.
It's true. Yeah, and one of the questions we're asking now more often in those initial calls is, where's the money coming from? Because if someone says, oh, I'm just going to put it on a credit card. No. Oh, I'm going to take a loan. Okay, what's your percentage? I got someone that took out a loan at 3.5%.
Wow.
Honestly, you're gonna beat inflation. So it's kind of free money, but make sure you have a way to pay it. Were they like, yeah, I got a good job. I just got a good rate. And I said, okay, yeah, I got no problem with that then. But you know, those that are, oh, I'm putting it all on credit cards. This is gonna be the way I get out and make something for myself. Nope. I literally had a client that had that, and when I found out, I've never done this in my life before. I zeroed out their bill. I sent them everything that I had. They owed me like $1,500. I said, I can't do it. It's a hardworking American who can barely afford to pay rent, who is struggling, and I'm going to take $1,500 from them. I'll survive. I'm not going to like it. I'll survive. But it's like, well, there you go, Grant. You're not as much of a capitalist as you thought you were. You got a soul. And that is not for those out there watching to try to do that to me. Don't do that. Like, that's just one of those where I said, damn it. I have to, I'm making, the heart is telling me to make the call and the wallet is going to suffer. And you know what? That's fine. I've had a bad back for years. The wallet can suffer a little bit more.
There you go.
We got a question from a viewer. It says, let's say you have a great idea, working prototype, but suck at marketing. Hey, Duff, are you talking about me? Would you at this stage consult with, let's say, a marketing professional to help come up with a song and dance? Or is that maybe too big of a step to make?
So let me make sure I heard this right. They have a working prototype, and now they're trying to figure out how to market it.
Yeah, and this is not to put it into the stores. It's to present for investors or, you know, a pitch deck, basically. Is it worth hiring a company to do that, or should you just roll with what you get?
That's a good question. It would depend. I mean, I guess their goal is to start a business around this widget, whatever it is that they have, right? So you probably be well served to find investors and find partners that can fill the gaps in your business acumen, right? So again, not all inventors are cut out to run businesses. So you need to find people that can do the things that you need, such as production and sales and administration and all that. So no, I don't have a one place solution for putting together a marketing. I would say if it were me, I would try to reach out to friends and family people that I know, people that I trust, people that have experience in business or commercial products, consumer products, and ask them for advice on what the next step would be on marketing, because that's interesting. Putting together a pitch deck and finding investors, while possible, you probably are going to have to fund it to some level prior to that. That means getting friends and family involved and saying, hey, you know, we need to raise 50 grand or 100 grand. With that, we're going to spruce up our prototype. We're going to hire a firm to help us put together a marketing campaign, pitch deck, do our market research, all that kind of fun stuff. So you might need a small friends and family round just to get you the funding you need to go to that next step.
That's fair. That's really fair. And marketing's another easy pitfall for those that don't know. We don't do a ton of marketing, mainly because we also suck at it. Because if I was better at marketing, I would make my YouTube channel a way to bring in money and not a way for me just to pay editors to make content that I love making. But educating is just fun for me. But
Sure.
yes, marketing is one of those hard things, especially if it's in an industry that is notorious for having bad marketing, like the 3D printing industry. Notoriously, everybody in this industry just kind of sucks at marketing. I do not know why. And the companies that are good at marketing are multi-million-dollar publicly traded companies that have the budgets to just say, yeah, we'll spend 200 grand on this marketing campaign. If it doesn't work, it's only 200 grand.
Right.
I spend $2,000 something. I'm like, oh, I don't know how I'm ever going to financially recover from this.
There you go.
But you know,
Yeah.
that's part of the deal, right? We have some kind of styles that we like to use for pitch decks to kind of get them a little bit different from others. But ultimately, I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, that it's not so much what's on the paper, it's
Mhm.
who's talking. The paper's good. I got to be able to read it to understand what you're talking about, but you have to also be good at doing that pitch. And if you can't pitch it to go to your local retirement home and talk to them. You know, there's one group of people that will always listen to you. It is people that live in retirement homes because
Mhm.
no one goes and visits them.
Yeah.
Go call your loved ones. It's literally part of my outros. I tell people to call their loved ones every single video. I make 5 videos a week. One, go call your loved ones, but two, that's a great place to go. Go talk to other people's loved ones.
Mhm.
And you will find, one, some of the coolest people you've ever met that have
Mhm.
stories that are just amazing. But two, people that are unabashed going to give you their honest opinion, whether they understand it or not.
And that's important, getting an honest opinion. One other thought about this whole pitch deck thing is that, it's just keep it simple. That would be
Yeah.
my overriding principle to your caller is just keep it simple. I've seen pitch decks that are just too complex, too much information. You can't understand it. You can't bring in investors if they can't understand what it is that you're offering. If you can't explain it in very simple terms in a couple, 3 or 4 sentences, whatever it is, the product that you're offering or the service, it's going to be difficult to get investors. I've literally walked away from investment opportunities because I didn't understand it and I had them explain it to me. And I'm not an idiot, but they could not break it down in its simplest form. And that's where you get the most
Yep.
traction. As I said earlier, when I was developing phase 10, I intentionally tried to keep it as simple as I could. I was originally going to have all these special cards like Uno does, reverse cards and draw more cards and this and that. And I did that, and it just made the game more complex, made it take even longer to play. And I said, wait a minute, just keep it simple. And so my advice to your caller is just keep it simple. Break it down as simply as possible. You could have the iPhone in complexity, but you have to keep it simple in your pitch.
Yep. It's like 3D printers. What are they? They're computer controlled hot glue guns. That's it. That's as simple as I can make it. If you need even more simple, take a hot glue gun, duct tape it to an etch a sketch, and also move it up and down. Done. That is as functionally simple as I can make them.
See, I've never heard it described that simply. I get it. You made it so simple.
It takes raw material, the spool's on the floor. Because I have no space on my desk to put it. But spool's on the floor, takes raw material, heats the ever loving snot out of it through a device sometimes that looks like this.
Mhm.
And there's a hole right at the end, 0.4 millimeters in diameter, crazy tiny. And then, with the help of special fancy motors and generally speaking magic, it makes things. And it sounds cool at the same time. And you know, I've been doing it for 14 years now as a hobby for 3D printing, product development for 10 years professionally. And I'll tell you, every single customer is a ton of fun.
Mhm.
But there are ones that we love way more than others. Similar to the business that you do, where you guys kind of find charities and things to work with.
Yeah.
I always try to the ones where we can kind of latch on to a good cause.
Mhm.
It warms your heart. So are there any particular charities that you're liking to work with right now that I should keep my eyes on for? Because like every quarter when we do better in the business, I like to reach out to charities
Mhm.
that are good and say, hey, I'd like to help you guys out with something, whether you have a product you're working on, whether I can make you something physical for a marketing campaign, maybe some trophies for an event, and we do it totally at no cost. But we record it, we make content out of it. Is there any charities we should be looking out for?
Yeah, well, this probably wouldn't apply for what you're looking at. The charities we deal with, I call them charities because of the nature of our business, but technically they're institutions
Okay.
that are nonprofits. So from that perspective, they're charities. But
Yeah.
we deal with a couple of local universities. Their donors become investors in our fund, and then a
Ah,
portion of their returns go to the institution. So we deal with a couple of institutions and a couple of private schools
okay.
that again are in need of constant funding. So they have their tuition, but they still need outside donations. So we take their donors, who are usually high net worth people, and say, hey, take a portion of your investment dollars, earmark them in our private equity, and then a portion of those returns will go to that institution that you've been donating to all these years, that you have an affinity toward. So, and they love it because now they get to get a good return and help the institution at the same time.
And that nice tax write-off. Everybody loves those.
You get that tax write-off too.
Amen to that. If I could help
yeah,
and reduce my taxable income, buddy, that's a win-win-win for
that's
me
a
right
win-win.
there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, Ken, again, thank you so much. You have any final thoughts for the viewers and listeners out there?
Well, again, I would encourage people to be, as you said about my book, there's a no BS approach. I'm very sober when it comes to this. I want people to really be objective about their ideas. And because the reason I'm so concerned about objectivity when you're looking at your idea and assessing it is because I've just seen hundreds, if not thousands. I've spoken to thousands of inventors at conferences and so on.
Of course.
But I've done one-on-one consultations with hundreds of them. And we're all very excited about our idea. We all think it's, the next best thing, and that's good. The problem is when we spend too much money on them without the right amount of analysis ahead of time to determine if we really have a marketable idea. And so my caution to inventors is just take it slow, not so slow that you let the market get away from you, but I mean slow in terms of spending money, outlaying cash on these ideas. Just do the research, make sure there's a market for it, assess the competition, and be objective of why your invention is better than the competition. If there is no competition, no one doing this, you need to ask why is no one doing it.
Amen.
Okay.
Amen.
Maybe there's no money in it.
Yep.
So these are the types of things I would leave with your viewers, to be very diligent, very objective. But also I want to leave them on a high note and say, hey, the sky's the limit. If you come up with something that's a hit, as I've been fortunate and blessed to do, sky's the limit on the potential, the longevity, the growth, what it can do for you and your family. I mean, this allowed me over the last 40 years and 35 since licensing to go into other businesses. So I've been in 5 other industries. I founded 5 other companies, 4 successful, 1 not successful. But the 4 successful, I was able to sell and make some good money from. I've employed 200 people in one of my businesses.
Wow.
I operated for 15 years. It was a telecommunications company. I bought long distance service from AT&T and resold it to small businesses. And we did quite well. This was in the 90s and early 2000s. So I've been fortunate because I had that stable income coming from my games to do other things.
Yep.
And so those are the upside, the things that are encouraging, knowing that you can give back to other people, which is why I do shows like this, trying to help other people. I consult with people all the time. I've never charged a person a dime. I don't want any of their money. I don't want a piece of their royalties. I want to help. And if I can help them be successful, that's good enough for me. I've literally helped a few people get license deals as a result of this kind of effort. So just keep at it. Your first invention might not be your hit. My first game was not my hit. But just keep at it. Learn from the mistakes. Learn from the failures that you will probably see. Learn from those things. Don't be discouraged. Figure out what lessons lie there, and then move on to the next idea. Because everything we've seen around us was created by someone. Look around your room, wherever you are now. Everything you see was created by someone, started in someone's mind. And so you can contribute to that and be one of those people. Just be very cautious, frugal, and take the necessary steps in the right order, like we outlined in the book. But start with an objective evaluation of your invention before you run to the patent office.
Yep.
Okay.
I totally agree with you, man. Ken, thank you again so much. Everybody, the link to his book is in the description. Go get a copy of the book. See a few people that already have it. Got a couple. One is on their Kindle. We have a lot of people thanking you for your time, Ken. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There are some epiphanies happening right now in the text chat. So
Sure. Anything I can do to help, just let me know. If you want me back on the show to answer some more questions, I'll be happy to help. Grant, you've been a great host. I like what you're doing, and anything I can do to help, just let me know.
Thank you, sir. And as always, everyone, stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one.